It's happening again. You know exactly what you need to do. But somehow, 3 hours later, you've reorganized your desk, scrolled through every social media app twice, and started baking cookies you don't even want to eat. And the worst part? You feel terrible the entire time. Here's what nobody tells you about procrastination. It's not actually about being lazy or lacking discipline. It's your brain's twisted way of trying to protect you. And once you understand what's really happening inside your head, you can finally stop fighting yourself and actually get things done. Let me explain what's going on. When you think about starting that stressful task, your report, your presentation, difficult conversation, your brain doesn't see a task. It sees a threat. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, detects danger and triggers a stress response. This activates a cascade that releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, similar to what happens in a fight or flight situation. And your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational, long-term thinking, becomes less active under stress, making it harder to plan, focus, and take action. So you enter this fight-flight-freeze mode, and avoiding the task genuinely feels like the safest option. Even though logically, you know a PowerPoint presentation can't actually hurt you, your emotional brain doesn't care. It just wants the uncomfortable feeling to stop. And here's the really cruel part. The longer you avoid something, the scarier it becomes in your mind. Researchers have found that when students are actually studying, they report the task isn't that bad. But when they're procrastinating, the mere thought of studying feels absolutely unbearable. Your brain is literally lying to you about how hard something is. This explains why some people procrastinate way more than others. It's not about time management skills, it's about emotional regulation. If you struggle with anxiety, low self-esteem, or controlling your emotions, you're going to procrastinate more, regardless of how many productivity apps you download. And let's kill one myth right now. Procrastinators are not lazy. Lazy people have low energy and don't care. Procrastinators? They're often frantically busy, doing everything except the important things. They care so much that they're terrified of failing or not meeting their own impossibly high standards. But whether you're avoiding tasks because of fear, boredom, or insecurity, the result is the same. Chronic procrastination creates this vicious cycle of anxiety, depression, shame, and actual physical health problems. You get short-term relief, sure, but you're training your brain that avoidance works, which makes everything worse long-term. So, how do you break the cycle? Here's what doesn't work. Beating yourself up. When you criticize yourself harshly, you're just adding more negative emotion to the task, which makes your brain see it as even more threatening. You need to reduce the emotional stress, not increase it. Let's talk about what actually works. First strategy, the 5-second rule. The moment you feel the instinct to start working, count backward. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and physically move. Stand up, open your laptop, grab your materials, whatever. You have 5 seconds before your brain starts generating excuses. This interrupts the overthinking loop and activates the logical part of your brain. Second, the 5-minute promise. Tell yourself you only have to work for 5 minutes. That's it. Starting is always the hardest part, but once you've been working for 5 minutes, your brain adapts. That initial resistance disappears, and it becomes much easier to keep going. There's actually a psychological phenomenon called the Zeigarnik effect, where your brain creates this mental tension around unfinished tasks. Once you start something, your brain wants to complete it. Third strategy, break everything into absurdly small steps. Your brain feels overwhelmed by massive projects, but microtasks, those feel manageable and safe. Instead of write the report, your first step is open a blank document, to then write one sentence. Each tiny win releases a hit of dopamine, which creates a positive feedback loop that makes you want to tackle the next small step. Fourth, engineer your environment. You cannot rely on willpower alone. It's a limited resource. If your phone is sitting next to you, your brain is constantly fighting the urge to check it, which drains your mental energy. Put it in another room. Close every browser tab that isn't directly related to your task. Keep the tools you need close at hand, and keep anything that interferes out of reach. This works most of the time. Focus on one thing only, because multitasking is really just context switching, and that exhausts you 40% faster. And finally, journal to identify what you're actually avoiding. Procrastination is an emotional regulation problem disguised as a time management problem. Sit down and ask yourself, what specific emotion am I trying to escape right now? Am I afraid of doing a bad job? Does this feel boring? Do I feel incompetent? Once you name the feeling, it loses some of its power over you. And here's something powerful. Write yourself a quick note, forgiving yourself for procrastinating earlier. Research shows that self-forgiveness is one of the most effective ways to stop procrastinating next time. Then write down the very first physical action you need to take. Not work on a project, something concrete like open the Word document or send one email. Because here's the truth, procrastination isn't a character flaw. It's not a sign that you're broken or hopeless. It's your brain trying to protect you from emotional discomfort by pushing you to avoid the task, even though that mechanism doesn't actually help. But now you know what's really happening, and you have tools that work with your brain instead of against it. Small steps, self-compassion, and reducing the emotional weight of tasks. That's how you stop the cycle. Comment below what works for you.